normal. My mother was still laughing when I hung up the phone. I know that because I held it away from my ear for a second before I ended the call, and I could actually hear her through the speaker. That particular laugh she has, the one that's more performance than feeling, the one that means you lost and I won, and isn't that delicious? My father was saying something in the background. My sister was giggling. The three of them, together, in what I imagine was a very nice hotel room in Waikiki, funded entirely by the $98,742 they had just spent on my American Express Platinum card over the previous 48 hours, without asking, without warning, and without a single moment of hesitation. I stood on the sidewalk outside my office building in downtown Seattle at 5:23 p.m. on a Thursday, and I looked at my phone and I looked at the transaction list and I did not yell, did not cry, did not call back. I said 4 words: don't laugh too soon. Then I got to work. I need to tell you who I am because the story doesn't make sense without it. My name is Mara. I'm 31 years old. I'm a senior software architect at a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle, a job I got by working 80-hour weeks for 6 years after graduating with a CS degree from University of Washington, a degree I paid for myself with scholarships and loans, and 3 simultaneous part-time jobs because my parents, who were not poor, who owned a home, who took vacations, had told me at 17 that college was my problem to solve. I solved it. I have been solving my problems myself for a very long time. That's context. That's important. My parents are Ken and Patricia Solano. My father is 63 and retired from a career in middle management that he describes as more distinguished than it was. My mother is 61 and has not held a job since I was in elementary school. My sister Becca is 28 and has, at various points in the last decade, been between jobs, between apartments, between plans, and between phases of a life that has never quite launched, despite considerable ongoing family investment. Considerable family investment, I should say, that has never included my family's actual money when mine was available. The pattern started small. It always does. A gas station charge in 2021, $47. My card information had been saved in my parents' Amazon account from a shared Prime subscription, and I noticed it on my statement and called my mother, and she said, "Oh, that was an accident. We meant to use ours." And I said, "Okay," and let it go. Lesson 1. Letting it go teaches people what you will tolerate. Then it was a grocery run. $230. Same explanation. Then a car repair. $840. My father's truck. Charged to a card he borrowed to just hold for a second while his wallet was in the car. Then Becca's rent. 1 month. $400. I'll pay you back next week. She didn't. Then Becca's rent again. Then a dental bill. Then a plane ticket to visit my aunt that somehow ended up on my Amex because, as my mother explained, we figured you wouldn't miss it and you make so much money now it feels weird to ask. I started keeping records in January of 2022. A folder on my laptop labeled emergency. Dates, amounts, descriptions. Every charge I hadn't authorized, every promise of repayment that evaporated, every conversation in which I raised it and was told I was being dramatic, selfish, ungrateful, cold. The word cold got used a lot. Also, transactional. Also, my personal favorite. Not what family does. By the time I stood on that sidewalk in Seattle, the folder contained 2 years and a little over $31,000 in prior unauthorized charges. The Hawaii trip was a different order of magnitude entirely. Let me walk you through the transaction list because I want you to understand the scale of what I'm describing. Resort booking, 4 Seasons Maui, 4 nights, 2 ocean view suites, $14,200. First class round trip airfare, Seattle to Kahului, 3 passengers, $22,400. Luxury SUV rental, a Lincoln Navigator, 7 days, $8,500. Dinner at a resort restaurant, $1,847. Spa services, resort, multiple appointments, $2,860. Designer retail, Waikiki, across 8 separate transactions over 2 days, $31,400. More restaurants, a sunset cruise, a helicopter tour, a luau package. By the time American Express flagged it as unusual activity and sent me the notification, they had been spending for 48 hours. The total, when I finished scrolling, was $98,140. I scrolled through it standing on the sidewalk and my hands were shaking and my mouth was dry, and I made a decision in that moment that I am still proud of. I did not react. Reaction was what they expected. Reaction was what they were used to, had always been able to count on. Mara gets upset, Mara cries, Mara lectures us about responsibility and family and mutual respect, and then nothing changes, and 6 months later we do it again because the lecture is annoying, but the consequence has never materialized. I had spent 31 years providing the lecture and absorbing the consequence. I was done. I called my mother instead, not to confront, just to confirm what I already knew, because confirmation was evidence and I needed evidence. She picked up on the second ring, already laughing. "Oh, you saw it?" she said, and her voice had that warmth it gets when she's pleased with herself, when she's pulled something off. "Good. Your sister deserved a real vacation for once. You've been selfish with that money your whole life." My father said something in the background. I heard Becca giggle. "Mom," I kept my voice steady. "You used my credit card without asking me. We're family." The warmth left and the edge came in like a blade. My mother's voice has 2 settings, warm performance and cold punishment, and the transition between them takes about 4 seconds. That's what family does. You thought hiding it was clever? Think again. The money's spent. There's nothing you can do. She genuinely believed that. I want you to understand that she genuinely, completely believed that I would complain and fume, and eventually absorb it the way I always had. Because I had trained her, through 31 years of absorbing it, to believe this was the dynamic we had. Don't laugh too soon, I said. She hung up, still laughing. I stood on the sidewalk for 10 seconds. I took 4 deliberate breaths. I noticed that my hands had stopped shaking, which surprised me, and then it didn't, because I wasn't scared anymore. I was organized. First call, American Express fraud line, 5:31 p.m. The representative's name was Marcus, and he had the calm, professional cadence of someone who has heard every version of financial catastrophe and handles each one with the same steady efficiency. I reported every charge as unauthorized fraud. I requested an immediate freeze on the card, a dispute on every transaction, and a full investigation. I have to advise you, Marcus said, that disputes involving family members can be complex. Do you have any documentation that these charges were unauthorized? I'm about to create some, I said. Marcus gave me case number 7749 ARX 02183. I wrote it on the back of a receipt from my coat pocket, which felt appropriately low-tech for the most important phone call I had made in years. Second call, Dana Patel, my attorney, 5:47 p.m. Dana has been my personal attorney since 2020, when I needed someone to review an employment contract. She is 39 years old, 13 years in civil and criminal law, with a focus on financial fraud cases and family legal disputes. She is also the most precise person I know. She does not waste words, does not overcomfort, and does not tell you things will be okay when she isn't sure they will. Don't argue with them, she said when I finished explaining. Don't threaten, don't warn, don't tell them what's coming. Just collect evidence and let the system do it. I've already got 2 years of prior incidents documented. Silence. Then, send it to me tonight. Third action, the text, 6:02 p.m. I texted my mother. No anger, no accusations, just a question. Just to confirm, you used my credit card for the Hawaii trip? She replied in 4 minutes. Still in Maui, still untouchable. I could feel the smugness radiating through the screen. Yes, and I'd do it again. Your sister needed this. Stop being dramatic. Screenshot. Sent to Dana at 6:08 p.m. with the subject line, Exhibit 1. Fourth action, the locksmith, 7:15 p.m. My parents had had a key to my apartment for 3 years. My mother had lobbied for it as a safety measure when I moved in case of emergencies. The emergencies had included letting herself in while I was at work to reorganize my kitchen, bringing Becca over to borrow my car without telling me, and one incident in 2023 when I came home at 11 p.m. to find them sitting in my living room watching my TV because they'd had an argument at their house and needed space. I called the locksmith at 7:15, both deadbolts replaced by 8:30. I stood in my kitchen testing the new keys and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time, like the walls were mine. The next morning, I walked into the Seattle Police Department at 9 a.m. I had a folder under my arm, printed copies of the Amex transactions, the text exchange with my mother, 2 years of documented prior incidents, organized by date, with amounts and descriptions. Dana had reviewed everything the night before and confirmed it was sufficient to file. The officer at intake was Sergeant Daniel Fry, 22 years on the force, the kind of face that has learned to receive information without expressing anything about it. He took the folder, he read it, he got to the text exchange. He looked up at me over the paperwork. This is your mother? Yes. He nodded slowly, the way someone nods when a thing is exactly as strange as it seems, and professionalism requires them to process it anyway. And she's currently in Hawaii, until Tuesday. He kept writing. I left the precinct at 10:23 a.m. with case number SPD 2024 F08841, and the kind of steadiness in my chest that comes from having done the right thing correctly. I went to work, I answered emails, I reviewed a code base for 6 hours. My mother texted me twice, once to ask what I'd made for dinner, as if we were fine, as if nothing had happened, and once to send me a photo of Becca on the beach with a champagne glass and the caption making memories. I did not respond to either. The texts kept coming over the next 4 days. My mother's, casual and oblivious at first. Did you book anything fun for the weekend? Have you talked to your Aunt Rosa? She's asking about you. I found a good recipe you'd like. I'll send it. Then, by Saturday, starting to sense something. You're being quiet. Are you pouting? Mara, it's been 4 days. Stop being childish. Your father wants to know if you're coming to dinner Sunday. No from me on Sunday dinner. No response to any of it. Then, Sunday night, from Becca. Mom says you're mad about the trip. I just want to say you've never understood how hard things have been for me. And this was the first real break I've had in years. And I think you should be happy for me instead of making it about money all the time. I read that one twice. She used $31,000 of my money on designer shopping in Waikiki, and she wanted me to be happy for her. I forwarded it to Dana. Subject line, Exhibit 12. Dana replied in 3 minutes. Perfect. Keep them talking. Meanwhile, the American Express investigation was moving. I had a second call with their fraud resolution team on Friday with a senior investigator named Rebecca Ewan. She had been with Amex's fraud division for 9 years and walked me through the process with the efficiency of someone who has explained it 1,000 times and made it sound fresh each time. We've frozen all disputed transactions, she said. The resort, the airline, the rental car company. All of them have been notified and placed under dispute holds. The retailers in Waikiki are a separate process due to the number of individual transactions, but we're moving through them. Will I be liable for any of it? Not Not if the investigation supports your fraud claim, which the documentation you've provided suggests it will. She paused. Can I ask, the person who sent you the text confirmation of use, do they know you filed? No. Keep it that way until you're ready. I was ready for Tuesday. They landed at SeaTac at 2:17 p.m. I know that because I had looked up the flight. I know exactly what time they cleared baggage claim. I know they took an Uber from the airport. I know my mother texted me from the Uber, and this is the part that still stuns me. Still, she texted me from the Uber. Coming to drop off some stuff. Have food ready. No question. No warning. Just instruction. The way you text a restaurant to confirm your reservation. They had been in Waikiki for a week on my credit card, and they came back expecting dinner. I had food ready. I had something ready. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Grace Cho. She's in her late 60s, retired, quiet, reliably present, and when I knocked on her door Sunday and explained the situation, she had looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "Of course I'll be there. That woman has let herself into this building 3 times this year without buzzing." Mrs. Grace Cho had opinions about my mother that she had been keeping politely to herself for 2 years. She was in the hallway when they arrived, standing by her door, reading a magazine, saying nothing. My mother came in first. I heard her before I saw her, the rolling luggage on the hallway floor, the specific cadence of her walk. She was tan. She was carrying a shopping bag with a designer logo on it. She looked relaxed and satisfied in the way of someone who has just had exactly the vacation they wanted. She went straight to my door and put the key in. It didn't turn. She pulled it out, tried again, harder, rattled the handle. What is this? Her voice went immediately to that high, sharp register, not quite yelling, but the frequency just before it. What did you do to the lock? I opened the door from the inside. I did not step back to let them in. My father stood behind my mother with the crossed arms of a man who has decided he is disappointed in you before he knows what's happening. Becca was beside him, tan, with her luggage and 3 Waikiki shopping bags. She had the expression of someone who has been told on the flight home that there might be mild family drama and has decided in advance to find it tiresome. My mother's eyes went to my face, then to Mrs. Cho in the hallway, who turned a page of her magazine and said nothing. You changed the locks. My sister said it like I'd rearranged the furniture without telling her. I filed a police report 3 days ago, I said. I kept my voice the way Dana had coached me, even factual, no heat in it. Credit card fraud, identity theft. The case number is SPD 2024 F08841, filed Thursday morning with Sergeant Daniel Fry. American Express has frozen every disputed transaction and opened a full fraud investigation. A senior investigator named Rebecca Yuen is handling the case. The smile left my mother's face for the first time. The first time in this whole situation, in all the years before it. The first time I had watched the performance drop completely. You wouldn't, she started. I have your text message confirming you used my card without authorization. I have 2 years of prior incidents documented with dates and amounts. I have a lawyer, Dana Patel, who reviewed all of it. And I have 2 active case numbers, one with the SPD and one with Amex. My father uncrossed his arms. Something shifted in his face that was not quite guilt and not quite fear, but somewhere between them. The expression of a man realizing the machine he's always relied on to absorb consequences has stopped absorbing. My sister's shopping bags looked different in that moment. I noticed that. The way the logos on them, cheerful, expensive, glossy, looked different when the context shifted. You're going to get your own mother arrested? My mother's voice had dropped. The performance was gone. What was underneath it was something I had only seen in pieces before, in the small moments when her control slipped. Something cold and afraid and furious at being afraid. Over money? Over $98,742, I said. Yes, nobody spoke. Mrs. Cho turned another page. I looked at all 3 of them one last time. My mother, who had called me selfish and laughed. My father, who had stood in the background of 31 years of this and called his silence neutrality. My sister, who had sent me a text asking me to be happy for her from a vacation I didn't know I was funding. You're not welcome here anymore, I said. The law knows what you did. I closed the door. I stood behind it and listened. My mother said something, not to me, just into the hallway, the beginning of some version of she can't do this, and then nothing. Footsteps, the sound of rolling luggage retreating, the elevator, gone. The next 8 weeks were a legal and financial process that I will summarize in the way that legal and financial processes deserve, thoroughly, but without drama, because the drama was done. American Express completed their investigation on October 14th. Rebecca Yuen called me at 11:05 a.m. to deliver the findings. All $98,742 in disputed charges were ruled fraudulent. Every cent was reversed and credited back to my account. The resort, the airline, the rental car company, all refunded by the disputing merchants. The retail transactions, which had been the most complex to unwind, were resolved by November 2nd. Total money recovered, $98,742. Total money I owed my family for their vacation, nothing. The Seattle Police Department case was assigned to Detective Maria Santos, 14 years in financial crimes, in mid-October. Detective Santos called me for a follow-up interview and spent 45 minutes going through my documentation. She was direct and unhurried, and at the end of the call, she said, "I want you to understand that this is a viable case. The text confirmation alone is enough to establish intent. The prior documented pattern supports a claim of systematic theft." She asked if I wanted to pursue it. I told her I wanted the record to exist. I wanted the case open. I wanted wanted what happened to be named by an institution that names things. What I did not want, and I've thought about this carefully, and I'm at peace with it, was to send my mother to jail. Not out of forgiveness, not out of love, exactly, in any form I recognized, but because the thing I had needed most my whole life was not revenge. It was to stop, to be done, to close the door and not open it again and let the system do the naming while I did the living. Dana filed a civil demand letter in mid-October. $341,000, the $98,740 from the Hawaii trip, plus the documented $31,000 in prior unauthorized charges, plus $211,000 in damages including legal fees and compensatory harm. It was sent certified mail to my parents' address on a Wednesday. My father called me that Friday, the only time he'd ever called me directly, rather than through my mother. He sounded old. He sounded like a man who had been standing behind someone else for 31 years and was now standing in front of something alone for the first time. Mara, he said. Dad, a long pause. Your mother she didn't think you'd actually— I know, I said. That's the problem. He didn't say anything. You can have your lawyer contact Dana Patel, I said. Her information is on the demand letter. I don't have anything else to discuss. I hung up. I sat at my desk and looked at the wall for a minute. Then I went back to work. The civil case settled in December. Confidential terms, which means I can't tell you the exact number, but I can tell you that Dana described it as favorable and smiled when she said it, and Dana does not smile at things that aren't worth smiling at. The police case remains open. Detective Santos has filed the documentation with the King County Prosecutor's Office. Whether charges are ultimately pursued depends on factors outside my control, and I have made my peace with that. The case number exists. The record exists. That's what I asked for. I blocked my mother's number on December 3rd. I blocked Becca on December 4th. My father I left unblocked because I'm not sure yet what that relationship is or isn't, and I'm not making permanent decisions about things I haven't finished thinking about. Here's what I want to tell you about the thing nobody says when they tell stories like this. Everyone wants the ending to feel clean. The villain punished, the money returned, the door closed, the survivor standing in the wreckage looking forward, and the money was returned, and the door was closed, and I am standing in something that feels like forward. But here's the actual truth of it. I spent 31 years training myself to absorb things, to accommodate, to rationalize, to take the lecture and the sting, and the this is what family does, and go home and pour a glass of wine and tell myself it would be different next time. And part of me, not the part that filed the police report, but another part, the part that learned to survive my family. Part of me found the door closing harder than the fraud, harder than the 98,142 years, harder than all of it, because closing the door means you stop trying. And somewhere in the 31 years, in some early lesson I don't remember learning, trying had become the proof of love. As long as you keep trying, you still believe they might change. The moment you close the door, you're acknowledging they won't. I closed the door. I'm still standing here. Some mornings that feels like freedom. Some mornings it feels like grief. Most mornings it feels like both. And I've started to accept that those are not different things. 3 months after I changed the locks, I redecorated my apartment. New throw pillows. A plant. A print I'd wanted for 2 years and kept putting off buying for reasons I now understand had less to do with money and more to do with the habit of not claiming space. I got the plant first. A big one. I put it in the corner by the window where the light is best. My mother had always hated plants. She thought they were clutter. Every time she'd come to my apartment, she would look at anything I'd added and say, "Oh, you don't need that," or "This place is getting crowded," and I would see the apartment through her eyes and feel it contract. The plant takes up a lot of space. I water it every Saturday. She said there was nothing I could do. She was wrong about that too.